When Canada needs our armed forces, they are always there. They show that in times of great difficulty, Canadians never face hardship alone. They fought for Canadian values during the Great Wars. They have been there for our friends, our partners in the Pacific, in Ukraine, and across the Middle East. They have been there for Canadians when impacted by storms, like earlier this year in Newfoundland, or floods, like last year in New Brunswick, Quebec, and Ontario, or forest fires, like those that hit Alberta and BC in previous years. And we developed our defense policy, Strong, Secure, and Engaged, in order to support our armed forces to be prepared and equipped to deal with the challenges that lay ahead. And now, during these unprecedented times, those who wear the uniform will be there for Canadians when called upon. And that is why we took precautionary measures early to ensure that the forces remained ready. And it is why, early in this crisis, the Chief of Defence Staff directed many of them to engage in physical distancing, to stay home, and be healthy and ready to respond. From the beginning, the Canadian Armed Forces have been a part of the whole of government effort in our fight against COVID-19, where the women and men in uniform assisted in bringing Canadians home from China and Japan to CFB Trenton. And over the past weeks, I've been in contact with my international partners and colleagues to learn from their experiences. With that information and looking at the possible needs across Canada, I directed the Chief of Defence Staff to develop a plan that would allow us to support a domestic response to COVID-19 based around 3 priorities. To support the efforts to slow the spread of COVID-19, to provide support to vulnerable communities across Canada, to assist our provincial and territorial partners with logistics, including directly supporting municipalities if needed. And I also want to stress that this response to COVID-19 would occur while still maintaining our ability to respond to possible flooding or forest fires. And based on this guidance, the Chief of Defence Staff has developed a plan that will see the Canadian Armed Forces mobilizing up to 24,000 regular and reserve force members across the Canadian Armed Forces to support these efforts. The Canadian Army have readied up to 10 regular force units across Canada. These immediate reaction units are ready to support any request for assistance. They can play a critical role in providing humanitarian support and delivering supplies. They'll be ready to respond to support Canadians no matter where they live. Also made available, reservists and Canadian Rangers are being brought into full-time service and will be part of an integrated Canadian Armed Forces response. These flexible teams are capable of operating as local response forces to assist with humanitarian support, wellness checks, natural disaster response, and other tasks as required. I also want to emphasize that particular attention was given to Indigenous and Northern and Arctic communities. And these needs directed our planning. And that is why over 50 Canadian Ranger patrols will be available to enhance our understanding of the needs of the Northern, remote, and Indigenous communities, and we will be ready to respond as required. And our Royal Canadian Air Force has all necessary capabilities and personnel to support the whole of government response to COVID-19 while continuing to deliver on their standing commitments. The Royal Canadian Navy are also ready to respond on short notice to coastal communities who might need a helping hand. We are moving forward with this plan to help support Canadians no matter where they live, when, and where it is needed. But it's also to keep in mind, every situation is going to be very different here. And what we're doing is making sure that we have a force that's able to respond to the various needs. We are the last resort when it comes to providing support. So the composition that we have created and the priorities that we have set out is to making sure that we're flexible, be able to respond directly to whether it's a surge of a need, whether it's a northern community that needs direct support, whether it's logistical support. So there's a wide range of support that allows the Canadian Armed Forces to respond. So we'll give the Chief will kind of go into a few details of it, but just keep in mind that we are able to respond across the country, from across the coast, and with particular attention to the North and the Arctic. Chief?
Thanks, Minister. If I could start off, I'd just like to say and offer condolences to people suffering right now on behalf of the armed forces. I know it's a tough time for the country. We've been preparing for a long time for this. We've got good plans in place, and we've got the troops sequestered, staying as healthy as possible so we can mount several thousand people at the same time if we need to. The fact is that, Bruce, it's a great question. We are going to be able to respond either with specialist capabilities like medical, logistics, engineering for a short duration event or for longer duration events, depending on what the need of the provinces is. We're also looking at significant responses in the event that communities start to suffer multiple events, including floods, forest fires, inside a COVID environment, where the armed forces will be able to put in place necessary support to critical infrastructure, logistics, as well as some medical support. So it's scalable, Bruce, depending on the nature of the problem. Thank you.